Hi all, hello all you cool cats and kittens. That's my opening intro for today for you who have seen Joe Exotic and Tiger King. I'm Carol Baskin. No, I'm Remy Morgan, and we're going to do a short webinar today on gamification and sales competitions. I think we can wait a couple more seconds before we get started so that all the attendees can join. I'm Remy Morgan. I'm the VP of Sales at Sales Screen, and I'll be hosting this webinar today with Ole Jakob. You can introduce yourself.
Yes, Ole Jakob here. I'm the co-host of this webinar series and work in the customer success team here at Sales Screen, working closely with some of the people I see here today. And I think this webinar series is at this point quite successful and gives a lot of great information in different aspects of Sales Screen. So I'm looking forward to continuing every 14 days up until summer. Perhaps we should start, Remy. It's a couple of minutes over.
Let's go.
Yes. So before we begin with the presentation, just some ground rules. You've all been muted. This is to avoid any background noise, especially now as some people have kids and other people in the background speaking loudly. However, you do have a Q&A tab at the bottom of the page. So feel free to write any questions there, and we will have a questionnaire at the end of the webinar. Perhaps we'll take someone during as well. As mentioned, this is a part of a webinar series where we're working on improving productivity, engagement, and sales performance. And I believe this is the 5th webinar in this series. And as you can see, we're going through gamification and sales competitions today as a main focus. The last webinars we had covering scorecards, targets, and the 9 steps to gamifications are available on the blog and on social media in full. So if you've missed anyone, please feel free to go back and watch them there. And at the end of the last webinar, we spoke about gamification in general, and we touched on sales competition. And Remy promised he will provide some insights on sales competitions and different strategies there. So VP of Sales, Remy Morgan, do your thing.
Thank you. A lot of cool attendees today. I like that. We're going to try to keep this short and sweet today. We're going for 20 to 25 minutes, so you can get back to work. As Ole Jakob said, it's all about sales competitions today. We're going to look at what a sales competition is, why you need to do them, how you should do them. We're going to dig a bit deeper into competition results. So we have analyzed over 6,000 competitions from 2019. And I've also looked at competitions in 2020, and especially how COVID-19 has affected this whole situation. And last but not least, I'm going to round it up with giving you the top 3 best competition tips for your team this week, next week, whenever you want, but things you should do to drive performance. So first off, we always start with a good Wikipedia article. So what is a sales competition? A sales competition is a motivational program in which rewards are offered to salespeople based upon their sales and or results. And this is quite interesting because they say that there are 3 types. You have direct, team, and gold competition. And I think this is the main problem because 1, you need multiple reliable sources. That's what I learned from this. But in a sense, this is true because this is the way sales organizations compete today. They run direct competition. So it's Remy against Ole Jakob, the first to sell the most. It's team competition, Ole Jakob and Remy versus 2 others. Sell the most, and this is your target, reach it. And with that, you limit yourself and you limit your organization to not being creative. So today we're going to talk about multiple ways of competing and which type of KPIs and metrics you should compete on to drive the best results. And I think you'll find some of these numbers quite interesting today. So there's two ways and two sides of a sales competition. It's the manager side, it's my side. Why do I want to run a sales competition? First and foremost, because I want to enhance, or I want to define some focus areas. I want us to become better at something we're not good enough at. That might be prospecting, it might be LinkedIn outreach, it could be picking up the phone, it could be closing deals. But that's the first thing I think about. Okay, what do I need to improve at the moment? Let's run a competition on it. Two, I want to engage my team, and I want them to do it themselves. Because if it's me telling them every time that you have to do this and you have to do that, that doesn't drive motivation from within. So find ways to engage your team. And last but not least, if you're in sales, you have some sort of competitive instinct. You have that drive. And competition is a great way to utilize that competitive drive. It's in them already. Just utilize it and use it. For the sales rep to be on the other side, it's fun. It's amazing. It lets me compete. And I have that competitive instinct, and I think that's fun. And it gives me as a rep a reason to focus on the things that I know is very important, but it's basically not the most fun part of the job. And in sales, that's often picking up the phone or the prospecting or the things that we need to do to reach our target, which is basically the only important thing in the end. And three, as a rep, you get rewarded if you do a great job. And everybody loves a good reward. And in the situation that most of us are at in the moment, working from home, sales competitions is essential to drive focus and to maintain performance. And I think that is as important today as to increase performance. It's to bring the level up to where we used to be. Right now, all you sales managers, you're competing with a lot of other activities your reps can do. If it's watching Tiger King on Netflix, or if it's washing your clothes, or cleaning your apartment, or worrying about their personal finances and playing with their kids or whatever. But you have a lot of competition that you don't usually have when you're in the office and you have that closed, safe environment. There's a lot of distractions, and competitions is a way to maintain focus on working. And if you don't keep your sales team engaged, somebody or something else will. And in the end, it's all about driving performance from within. So that's the why. I think we all get that, or else you probably wouldn't be here. Next up, this is not something I've researched, or this is my personal opinion out of looking at thousands of competitions ran, and like looking at the best companies and how they create the best possible results. So what do you need to do? How do you run a sales competition? And I've created a 8-step show here. So I think the first and most important thing that you need to do is that you need to analyze your data to define your focus areas. And this is where most of us fail, because we run competitions on the same things. We start a competition the first of every month, and we end it at the last of every month. I'll show you some data afterwards that confirms that thing. But we run sales competitions because it's what we used to do, and it's what the reps expect. But we don't use sales competitions as a way to drive the performance on the things that we need to drive performance on. And that's about choosing the right KPIs, the right metrics. And that depends on your sales cycles. You need to look, do we have enough opportunities? Do we need to create more opportunities? Do we need to book more follow-up meetings? Do we need to close deals? Do we need to pick up the phone to existing customers? What do we need to do? What do we need to do to become better and in the end drive more revenue to our organization? And look at data first. And you have your dashboards in SalesScreen if all of you here are SalesScreen customers. So you have the data source. Just look at it, utilize it, and try to understand where do we need to perform. And this could be different from team to team, individual to individual, but create competitions that make sense for each individual and each team. Decide length of competition. I like to say that in general, short is sweet. And like the more competitions you do, that's less than a week, the better. Me personally, I don't believe in competition that lasts for more than a month, because you're going to get focus at the start of the competition and at the end of the competition. And those 30 to 80 days in between, they're just going to be as usual. So use competitions to kickstart something or end something off or create spikes here and there. And of course, if it depends on your sales cycle as well. If you have a long sales cycle, you have above 90-day sales cycle, you probably need to do sales on that span. If you have short sales cycles to close deals within a week, you can run sales competitions in a week. But in general, if you're going to do prospecting activities, calls, meetings, all those things, keep it short, keep it below a week, try to keep it down to hours if possible, like 3, 4, 5 really focused hours on booking meetings. That's amazing. Competition setup. Are you going to do team competitions, user competitions? What kind of competition? Are you going to spin the wheel? Or are you going to do target competitions or whatever? I think first and foremost, take a hard look at your team. What drives your team? And how can we challenge each individual in that team? And in sales in general, we have a tendency to do individual competitions. And I just looked at data for 2020, and the results is quite clear. Individual competitions see an average increase of 119% in 2020 versus 208% for team competitions. Why? Because if we're doing team competitions, I'm going to push Ole Jakob. He's going to push me. And if I'm really not motivated, I feel that obligation to deliver to that other person in my team. And that automatically increases performance. 5, give prizes to top 50% performers. This I've actually Googled, and everybody who's talking about competition says the same. And this is the biggest flaw every sales manager in the world does. I've done it a million times, and I guess you have as well. But we give away prizes to number 1, 2, and 3. And there's 20, 30, 40 people participating. And in sales, like in anything else, the law of Pareto counts. 20% is accountable for 80% of the results. So the goal of the competitions isn't necessarily to make your top 20% performers better. It's about increasing productivity and performance on your middle 60%. And I put up a picture here now, Formula One. For those of you who haven't watched Drive to Survive on Netflix, I highly recommend it. It's a great documentary about the Formula One circus. But in Formula One, you have 20 drivers in the world, the 20 best drivers, athletes in the world. And in general, there's 3 teams that can win. It's Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull. And everybody knows it. But still, they're out there sacrificing their life every other weekend. Why? Because they've built it up like a points competition, basically. So if you end up first, you get 25 points. Second, 18, 15, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 1. So if you come in 10th place, you get points. And if we transfer that knowledge from Formula One into sales, and you think the same for your team. So you create a points league where they get points for how they place. It's going to be important for that one person that usually ends up in 7th or 8th to try to outperform themselves, to become 5th, 6th, maybe 4th, maybe win once in a while. But that's going to drive performance and drive productivity and revenue in the end for you over time. So think Formula One, give away prizes to up to 50% of your top performers. We're not going to incentivize bad performers, but we're going to incentivize half of your reps. 6, start gameplay, launch the competition, set it up, speak with your reps, make sure that they agree to the competition, and this is things we need to focus on. When you come halfway in your competition, so if you're doing a daily competition, during lunch, come in, discuss results, whatever we experience, positives, negatives, find a new wave of motivation and start again. end the competition, celebrate, bring it up in your morning meeting the day after, let them know that the competition worked and that we can do the same again. And if you follow these 8 simple principles for ending competitions, you're going to see amazing results. I can personally guarantee that, because this is thought through. And that's the most important thing. We need to think it through. And one last lesson on how to run sales competitions: never do the same competition on the same metric 2 days in a row. I failed there 3 weeks ago. So I did a sales, a call off on Monday, and I did a call off on Tuesday. And we decreased the number of calls on Tuesday with like 3 times. So switch it up. Calls on Monday, emails on Tuesday, LinkedIn outreach on Wednesday, meetings on Thursday, closing deals on Friday. Make sure that there's something specific they need to do every day. I've been talking a lot. How are we on time, Jakob?
Well, we are, it's interesting, it's great. So just take your time, and if someone have to leave, we're recording this session and you can just catch what you missed later on. And I'll just take this time to remind that we have the Q&A box at the bottom if anybody have any questions.
Yeah.
Back to you, Remy.
Thanks. Next up, we're going to look at KPIs. And that's quite interesting. But in general, and this data tells us the exact same thing, we see that of the 6,118 competitions we analyzed from 2019, 4,465 of them were run on sales. So 73% of all competitions completed in SalesGreen in 2019 is on the type called sale. But we see that if you do competitions on meetings, calls / other prospecting activities and or offers, that outperform sales every day with 2 and up to 3 times. So why do we do it on sales every time? Because that's what we want to get in the end. We want more revenue. But to get more revenue, first I need to pick up the phone or send that email. Then I need to book that meeting. And then I need to send that proposal or offer. And then I can close the deal. So try to utilize more of your pipeline when running competitions. Do the easy steps. Do the things that each rep can influence. And I think that's the main reason why we see a much higher average percentage increase on when we do meetings, calls, and offers, because this is something the reps can influence themselves. So if you're running competitions on meetings and calls, it's totally up to the rep. If you're running competitions on sales, there's something else there as well. You need the customer to agree. You need a sign-off. Maybe need to go through procurement and legal. And that's something they can't influence at the same level. So if you're doing especially short competitions, 1 to 7 days, keep it at the top 2 activity types, as we see here, meetings and calls and activities. And we have a lot of data, and I can't bring up all the data today. So if you want to know more, feel free to reach out and I can help you find some numbers if you want to look at your industry specific. We're going to look at 4 industries now, are not necessarily our top performing industries, but the industries where we have most customers. So let's start with software and tech. So we looked at 184 competitions completed in 2019. We see that calls increased with, on average, 204.67%. Opportunity creation with 114%, meetings 113, activities 75.79, and deals 53%. On average, if you run competitions on one of these 5 activity types in the industry, software and tech, you see an average 99.2% increase from previous period. So the way we count this is basically we look at the competition period. If that's for 5 days, we're gonna compare it with the previous 5 working days. Direct impact of running that competition. If we look at insurance, where we probably have the most competitions within the industry, 1,086 competitions, we see again meetings, activities, offers, and sales. So the same numbers come back to us over and over again. And here we see an average of 57.7% increase. And I think that number is a bit lower because they run way more competitions. But I would rather have 57.7% average increase on 3 competitions a week than 99.2 on 1 competition a month. Moving forward to commercial real estate, 195 competitions, 87.5% average percentage increase. Again, activities thrown at the top. Offers, which is basically signed agreements. Sales is when the house or apartment is sold, and meetings on 4th actually. And we know that in real estate, generally, it's a pretty reactive industry. And I know that I'm in touch with a lot of different managers in that industry, and I know that they're trying to change and trying to become more proactive, especially in times like these. And picking up the phone is the easiest way to do that, and doing it with competitions. 4th industry, banking/finance. 761 competitions, 71.1% average percentage increase, and again, 91.71 on opportunity. But in banking, usually there's a quite short sales cycle from when we start to when we close. So sales perform quite well here because it's about contacting a lot of existing customers usually and trying to convert them to buy new products. So quite interesting data. We have this data on basically any industry. So if you want to dig deeper into your industry, if I haven't covered that yet, let me know. And with this, so we've been looking at 2019 data now. So, and I know that like what everybody's is concerned about and worrying about in days like these is how has Corona or COVID or the Rona affected us? And I'm not going to look on a deep dive into each different company or industry, but I'm going to look at overall competition results. We got a question there from Gade who asked if it's possible to get the slides. Yes, I'll send it to you directly after the meeting, Gade. And this is quite interesting graph. On the left here, we can see average percentage increase in the competition. So the results of the competition. We can see the week we were competing in, and we can see number of competitions on the right there. And we see that the green line is average percentage increase on all competitions completed in those weeks, and number of competitions created in those weeks. So we see that it varies a lot, and we see that the competition creation very often happens on the 1st of every month. So this is the 1st of February, this is the 1st of March, and so on. Again, we don't really think this through. We just create competitions to create competitions. And we see the results. We see that in week 11, the week before Corona, we had, for some reason, massive results, 300% increase on average on all competitions created that week. And in week 12, the work from home life started. And we see that the competition results is basically the same before and after Corona. I would like to say it's probably I should have put a trend graph here as well. But the problem is, for some reason, we've stopped competing. So we're not creating competitions anymore. And that surprises me a lot. So you have a lot of sales reps. That's usually in a sales floor. But now that they're all home alone, we're not competing anymore. And I think that's something we need to reflect on. And especially in times like these, we have to compete even more. We have to engage, we have to attract, we need to include the reps and give them a reason to work, basically, a reason to stay on the same level they used to be on. So this is a curve I hope increases in the coming weeks and months because this work from home life, it's challenging. It's challenging for me, it's challenging for you and for all your reps. This is a way to drive motivation and drive focus, compete more, shorter cycles, define focus, keep on keeping on, basically. So that's my Corona edition of competitions. The results are the same. We just need to compete more. We're not doing that today. We're actually competing less. In SalesScreen, there's multiple ways to compete. I'm not going to go through each and every one. I'm going to show you afterwards now the top 3 performing competition types so far in 2020, which competition types drives the best results. But in SalesScreen, there's enough options to choose from. And in the past month where we've been working from home, I've learned one thing, and that is that sales competitions work. We've seen on average 80 to 100% increase on the competitions or the metrics that we're competing on at any time. And the reason for that is because it creates that laser focus we all need, especially in times like these. But right now, it's difficult for a lot of industries. Like, what am I going to compete on? Is it sales? That's difficult. Personally, I drive a lot of competitions on activities and meetings, calling your existing pipeline, your existing customers, new prospects that we know probably works well with Corona. But try to change it up, basically, and focus on these base metrics, calls, emails, meetings, and so on. But in general, SalesScreen offers a variety of layouts, of ways to compete, so that you can change things up, individual, team, company, on 12 different types, on 20 different layouts. That's enough to last a couple of years on competitions. So it doesn't have to become and be the same every week. As I talked about, we're going to talk about the top 3 performing competition types of 2020. This is based on data we pulled 2 days ago, so it's quite fresh. The first and best performing competition type is the multiple targets competition. In short, this is a competition where you define multiple targets, either on an individual, team, or a company level. So say that if we book 5 meetings, we get a can of Red Bull. If we book 10 meetings, we go for lunch as a team. If we book 20 meetings, we take a weekend in Copenhagen. If we book 50 meetings, let's go to Las Vegas. Super simple, but it's different goals. So you unlock new prizes every time you reach a goal. And if you run these on teams, you'll see immense growth. I have seen this for a lot of customers. But this is the best performing competition so far in 2020. The numbers is insane. It's only on 22 competitions, so it's not a lot of competitions. So that's why I want to put this one up here as well. But we see on average 321% increase from previous period when competing with this competition. It's very often a one-day competition, but in general, 321% average increase on the 22 competitions that's run with this type this year. So I recommend that this should be your next one. Then second best performing competition is the direct competition where who's best, basically. 899 competitions completed so far this year with this type. There's a lot of different layouts. I think there's 12 different layouts, so you can compete them in a lot of different ways. And we see on average so far this year, 168.2% increase compared to previous periods. And this works for both teams and individuals. So this is a go-to. Just make sure that you give away enough prizes and you make it interesting for everyone, not your top 20% performers. Third best performing competition is the target competition. So basically the same as the previous one, but with targets, with personal goals or predefined goals. It's 106 competitions completed with this layout today, and we see an average percentage increase of 93.7. So that's my tips for you guys today. I really recommend trying this one. I did it previously. I did it last week on calls, where there were a prize if we tripled our results from the previous day. And I just had different milestones. Now we've done as much as we did last day. Now we're 20% better. Now we're 40% better. Now we're 100% better. Let's reach for more. But this is a team collaboration competition. It's great to drive that performance. That was what I had today. We made it on time, half an hour. Do we have any questions, Ole Jakob?
I've answered some of them in terms of the presentation. I guess we will distribute them to everyone after. So as long as you signed up with the correct email, then you will receive it. Just to add on before taking on any last minute questions, if you don't have the multiple target competition available in sales screen, just reach out on the support chat or to your customer success rep and might have to be activated.
Yeah, that's right. It's a quite new competition, so we should activate it for everyone, I guess, anyway. But yeah, just send us a ping at the chat and we'll activate it for you.
We have a question. I wish it was possible with multiple product competitions as well. Will that be coming?
You can do that with points. So the question is, I wish it was possible with multiple product competitions as well. Will that be coming? And we're doing one new thing now with points. Basically, you can create a competition, and in the competition setup, you define how they get points. So you can say that every time you complete a call, you get 1 point. Every time you book a meeting, you get 5 points. Every time you close a deal, you get 25 points. And that would auto-calculate itself in the competition. We have that in beta now, so it's available for you to test. If you want, you can run this on 5 products at the same time, 5 activity types or 5 activities. So just reach out to us on the chat and we can activate that for you in beta, for sure. Any other questions, OJ?
Not that it's open now. I can add that when it comes to the KPIs and the first steps you mentioned with the analyzed data to define focus areas, for those who have been, I see there are a few here who have been with us for every webinar, this is kind of a red thread going back to the first webinars regarding KPIs. So yeah, so if you have any questions or looking for ways to do that, if you're not sure on how, then Remy shared some nice tips in the KPIs webinars as well. And it's part of the red thread we're trying to have here. I see Edward's, yeah, Edward, I will activate this for you right after the webinar. Rather than that, it doesn't seem to be any questions. I see we're a few minutes over time. Thank you, Remy, for sharing these insights with us. As I mentioned, introduction-wise, this is a webinar series we tend to have every 14 days at this time on Thursdays. We will do this again in 14 days. Follow us on social media and you'll probably get a ping with an invite to the next webinar. And if you also, I would like to add, if you have anything you want us to cover for a webinar, again, feel free to reach out to us and we'll take that into consideration. It's important that we also provide what you would like to know, not necessarily what we think you would like to know. Also, if you have any issues or struggles with setting up competitions or need any help, we're always here to assist you. Please contact your customer success representative or on the support chat and we'll assist you setting up the competition the way you want. And the same goes if there's any questions popping up after this webinar is over. If there's anything you wish you would ask or would like to ask with an email, feel free to reach out to us. And I guess that's it for now. Thank you everyone for attending. There was a lot of attendees today. There were some interesting insights shared from you, Remy. We will upload this webinar online as soon as possible and also distribute the slides to the attendees. And everybody stay safe. and take care of each other. And we'll
Wash your
speak
hands.
with you in 14 days.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Have
Thanks,
a
guys.
great day. Bye.